They really make it obvious that you're being recorded now, so you have an opportunity to say no. Which reminds me, we want to respect your privacy and your right to be on camera or not. So if you do not want your face shown on something that will be posted on the diocesan website, please go ahead and switch off your camera. Otherwise, we'll see you as we do. So thank you for that. My name is Davey Gerhard, and I'm the Director of Development and Planned Giving for the diocese. And I am really happy that you are here with me this evening as we talk about Virtual Stewardship 201. We've learned so much in the last year, and let's talk a little bit about what we learned and what emerged as some of the best practices in how we ask and give money online. So our learning objectives this evening, we're going to talk about virtual relationships, how we keep our relationships fresh in the 2D virtual world, and how we can connect on that, even as we are re-emerging from some of the social distancing and other technologies that we had to use during the pandemic. I think some of the hybrid worship and hybrid experiences are going to be with us for a while as people vaccinate, as people start to get more comfortable coming back. And some people may just prefer cameras for a while. So we're going to have to keep finding ways to connect virtually, even when we reopen our buildings. I'd like us to talk about a few of the breakout best practices that came through the pandemic, and learn a little bit about what happened last year and what we all learned. And I'm so proud of all of you for having done the work of church when it seemed like everything was upside down. We had to reinvent it and build it as we flew it, but we did. And so let's talk a little bit about the things that worked and the things that we still feel like we could improve on. I want to talk a little bit about the virtual offertory. And even as we come back into our churches again, we may not ever be comfortable passing a collection plate, or may not for a while be comfortable passing a collection plate around, something that everybody touches in common. So let's look at some ways that we can highlight virtual giving and online giving at our offertory. It's such an important moment in the liturgy. And then finally, we're going to talk about an updated list of virtual offering plates and giving platforms, some of the ones that really did well in 2020. And we're going to talk a little bit about those. And if you have yet to develop an online giving portal, we're going to talk about that and how you can do that. Fundraising is all about relationship. Stewardship is about relationship. As we think about all of the gifts that we have and all of the ways that we have to connect with each other, they are all relational, and church is built on relationships. When we do our drives, our pledge drives, our campaigns for stewardship and fundraising, we're really asking people to connect with each other and to build on those connections that they have. And this is why it's so important, even in our socially distanced way, to keep up our relationships with each other. You all have done so much good work in keeping things going and keeping people connected. But I'm just here to remind us that we need to keep doing that. And when it comes time to do our pledge campaigns this fall, it's going to be really important to have had solid relationships with folks and connection and communication throughout the year. Last year was the year that even the holdout vestries, the treasurer or the finance committee chair that did not want to implement online giving, finally capitulated, because we had to find a way to ask for money online and give our members a way to make gifts online. And so for many churches, I say this about my own, Holy Innocents in San Francisco, which for decades had been holding out on creating online fundraising opportunities, we finally had to take the plunge and find the platforms and methods that work for us. And it's really because online giving is the way that the church is going to keep making its gifts in the future. So the financial costs of electronic giving are real. And this is why many of our churches hesitated for a long time on implementing a platform. Some good news is that the costs have come down a little from where they used to be. And adoption is so high because everybody's doing it. And so treasurers and our church budgets, even our modest church budgets, are realizing that the costs of asking for money online are just built-in costs now, costs of doing business, and how we ask for money and keep our cash flow happening in our congregations. According to the Lake Institute, which is out of the Indiana University Lilly School of Philanthropy, the Lake Institute did a study of faith and giving, and they came up with a few great statistics that I offered with you now. It's not just our youngest donors who give online. We often will say this in church, well, you know, we don't have a whole lot of millennials and Gen Z folks. Why are we doing all this work creating social media channels and giving online giving portals? Well, it's because the Gen X folks, people in my age group, 40 to 59, are the largest group of online donors across the church and across the country. And so we are trying to make certain that all generations are making gifts and able to make gifts. We're at a moment now where there are more generations living at any one time because of medicine and because of our longer lifespans than we've ever had in human history. We have a lot of span of years of people who are active and in our congregations. And this is really unusual to have so many generations represented at one time. And so we need to come up with funding strategies and online giving opportunities that create opportunity for all of those folks in every generation. So while millennials and Gen Z aren't the only folks who give online, I want to make a little plug here for our millennials and say they are the most generous generation to date. 97% of millennials have made a gift to charity. Now, they're the folks who kind of started Kickstarter and all the other GoFundMe things, and so it's easy to make gifts online. And as we've seen in the last couple of cycles of political elections, $5 gifts made frequently are easy to do. They're catchy and they create robust funding streams in campaigns, right? Well, churches are starting to learn from this too and learn that our millennial donors and our Gen Z donors are very generous with small gifts and can make gifts. Faith-based giving in general has grown almost 9% in the last 2 years. So this is saying that our churches, even before the pandemic, were really starting to do this work of asking for money online. When someone in your congregation says, well, our seniors, they just don't make gifts online, remind them that 59% of donors 66 and above have made a gift online. So they know how to do this. They're also using Amazon. They're also using eBay. They're also making online purchases in other ways. So the technology is familiar to them. There's not this fear that we assume that our late boomers and our greatest generation folks have to giving online. They're there, they're making gifts online. Bottom line is you're leaving money on the table if you don't accept online gifts. And we don't want to leave money on the table. A few things that have really improved since last year in terms of giving are social media, sort of our other channels of giving, and the perennial good ideas that I want us to talk about today. So I want us to look a little bit into social media and how churches are starting to use this more and more to get out the message and to do some online fundraising. Now, this can be for special event fundraising, special ministries, but it can also be a part of your annual campaign or your regular donation cycle. Churches are using social media for all of this now. Social media works. This is why churches are using it. I hope that you all saw at some point last year the Hamilton parody, the dancing priest from South Carolina who shamelessly danced around his church singing "We'll Be Back" from Hamilton and reminding folks that one day the church will reopen. It was a hilarious video. He made a spectacle of himself and enjoyed it in the process. And look at how many people viewed this online. 1.6 million people, and this is an old slide, so it's increased since then, right? This is amazing social media adoption. So maybe when you do your video campaign and dance down your aisle and have it filmed, it might not get 1.5 million views, but it will connect with an audience. When you do some social media and you get something that's fun and catchy out there, you can really open up the ideas. I remember seeing earlier in the pandemic, Deb White from Grace Martinez did sort of she pretended she was a flight attendant and her church was like, the airplane. And she gave these very calm instructions for how we were going to do church and, pretended that things were dropping down from the ceiling to help each other, right? So what she created in that right here in our diocese was this video to poke a little fun at it, to tell people what was going on, and to remind people that the church has a sense of humor. And that video was shared. It went all throughout the diocese. I don't know where else it went, but people were looking at this. And she was willing to do that because the moment was there and people were able to help her with that technology. If you do not know how to create a video and post it on YouTube, there is someone in your congregation or someone in your family who does it and who knows how to do this. Your kids and your grandchildren know how to do this. The youth members of your congregation are doing this anyway on their Instagram feed or their TikToks. They know how to do this stuff. And so you can rely on them, ask them for help. How can we do something that is going to promote our church, talk about the work that we do in the world, talk about our ministry, catch a new wave of people and who might then learn about us. Will we all experience massive adoption in our social media? Probably not. But could it get to a few new people, a few new eyes that might then take a look at what you're doing and be inspired and want to join you or support you or learn more about you? Take advantage of the other social media trends that are out there, particularly the ones that are related to giving, like Giving Tuesday. Why don't churches do this? It's happening. You're getting all the email solicitation. You're hearing about it on TV and radio. You're seeing evidence of Giving Tuesday. It's the day that follows Black Friday and Cyber Monday, right around Thanksgiving. And it's when people make their gifts to nonprofits. And nonprofits have really capitalized on this, marketed it as an idea, Giving Tuesday. Well, so what would it be like in your church if you did a special appeal on Giving Tuesday and brought in gifts either to fund your operating budget or a special ministry that's really important to you? The suggestion here is to take advantage of the groundswell around you, the idea that there's a trend happening around this, and participate it. It will also make your church feel excited, relevant, like, hey, we're kind of hip. We're doing this Giving Tuesday thing. And this is important too. Marketing to your own members is really important in helping them understand that we are relevant, we're doing something really exciting, we're doing something that's innovative, we're going to participate in this. Crowdfunding, we know that there's a lot of sort of GoFundMe campaigns out there. Our churches don't participate in that so much, but Facebook is also a great way to do it. And you can designate one of your special ministries to receive, do a little social media campaign where all of your members post it to their Facebook page. Facebook collects donations and then gives you the money. We'll talk about Facebook's giving platform a little later in this presentation, but there are great ways to do crowdsourcing and great ways to increase the number of people who might want to make an online gift for you. Your website, your front door, is your best channel for online giving. And it's not just for people who might be visiting your website or looking at your website to see when your services are, but it's also for your members. When you put your own giving information and a donate button and the ability to fill out a pledge form and all of that, put it on your website, then people who are new to you, people who have been members forever, they can access it all equally, and it's just there. They don't have to wait for a letter to arrive. They don't have to check their email for that thing that they lost. They don't have to be in church the day that the campaign is announced to pick up their envelope in the back and their package. It's right there and ready for them. Your website should have a really easy way to make a gift. Every church website should have a way to make a gift to their ministry, and it should be right on their front page, and it should be tastefully presented but obvious. And you want to make it as few clicks as possible from seeing that button to completing the gift. The more clicks, the more screens you have to go through, the more people opt out and decide that they're getting bored with your process and might not complete it. So minimize the number of clicks, and we'll talk a little bit more about some strategies on how to do that. TENS, the Episcopal Network for Stewardship, has created a guide to help you create an online giving portal that might be successful. I give you the link there, and I'll send it out in the information that I send out in the material later today. But you can create a virtual pledge form. We have some great tools to help you do that. And this has been done by hundreds, thousands of churches. No reason to reinvent the wheel. Pick up on what they've done and make it good for yourself. In 2020, we saw a real dramatic increase in church text to give campaigns. Text to give campaigns work on, as they sound, on your cell phone, and it allows you to type in a number, type in amount, and boom, a gift goes zipping off and appears at your church. Giving campaigns can be constructed through your, some of you are using directory software or other kinds of materials that allow you to send group texts. And this is a great way to do a reminder about a special initiative fundraiser that you're trying to do, reminder to fill in your pledge form or to make a gift, or just on Sunday morning, especially when people are gathered perhaps virtually, to say, now's the time, it's 10 o'clock on Sunday morning. Do you know where your gift is? Like, make it, now's the time to do it. Here's a reason why text to giving is so successful. It's because 98% of text messages are opened within 3 minutes of receipt. So you're actually putting your message in the hands of your members for immediate action. When we look at average gift size for an email or for other channels, an average gift size to a church for a solicitation that goes out, not your pledge, but like donate today or donate to this thing. is $35. An average text gift size is 107. This is saying that people who adopt this model are much more likely to make an instant, heartstring focused gift and send it to your church at a higher level than they would if they're receiving your email or if they're getting a letter in the mail where that average gift size is lower. Text gift size averages are high. This is good because people get excited in the moment and want to make a gift that has an impact, and so they send it off. It's immediate, instant gratification. How good does that feel? Your text message, short, simple. You only have a few characters to get their attention anyway. So make it a really good pitch. Talk about impact. What is your gift going for? Give an example. It's going to feed this many people. It's going to teach this many kids. It's going to provide this service for these people. Make it mission focused and impact focused. This will help get your point across. Have just one call to action per solicitation. I know this is hard for us in church because when we finally get around to sending an email, we want to put a whole bunch of things in it. Make sure you fill out your pledge form, and also we're having an ice cream social next week, and don't forget the book club next Sunday and all the things that we're doing. Well, there are other ways to communicate that, and your fundraising appeal isn't that. It should be really specific about impact and about mission, and give them one thing to do. The one thing you want them to do in that message is to make a gift. You can get the newsletter and learn all about the other opportunities, or you can send them someplace after they've made a gift. Have a little web page open up that shares all the other things that you're doing. But until they make that click, give them only one option, and that's click or go home. We want them to do that when we're asking them to make a gift and to do when we're spending the time to make a solicitation. So whatever it is, if it's trying to bid up your silent auction, if you are doing a plug for volunteers needed at an event or at a ministry in your church, if you're activating your prayer list for a particular reason or a particular concern, or if you're asking for money, have a single call to action, and text messages are a great way. Again, 98% of text messages are read. Do people like reading them from their church? Well, don't abuse it. But when you send it and it's good, it will be read, and the likelihood of people acting on it is high. I want to talk a little bit about mobile giving. I know that a lot of people, a lot of churches used Venmo, and then in 2020, early 2020, PayPal acquired Venmo, and so it is no longer able to be used. No, that's the wrong way to say it. You can't create a new account for a nonprofit or a church to use Venmo to accept and make gift payments. They now want you to use PayPal to do that. If your church created a Venmo account before that rule went into effect, you can still use Venmo, but at some point it's going to go away. When, we're not sure, but at some point it'll go away. They're trying to make Venmo person-to-person transfer and PayPal person-to-institution transfer. So that's what they're looking at in their business model. And so if you were lucky enough to have a Venmo account before 2020, you can still probably use it, but it won't be forever. Before I take a break, can we talk about some other ask for questions and talk about anything else? I want to go over a few best practices for your virtual pledge form. Again, just ask for what you need. Simplify your form. Your pledge form or your pledge card, when you do that for your annual campaign, should be really basic. You want to know how to get in touch with them. You want to know what they want to give, if there's any, how frequently they want to make that gift. You might put some information about, do you want us to touch base with you about matching gifts, about legacy gifts, about making a gift through stock. But just ask the most basic questions. Don't ask too much, because when the more questions you ask and the more clicks people have to do and the longer your form is, the more opportunity you have for people to leave before it's finished. To the extent that you can, you should brand your giving form, your virtual pledge form, to look as much like the rest of your church materials as you can. Some of them give you a wide way to customize it and give you a lot of functionality. Some of them really just allow you to upload your logo or your tagline, and maybe choose colors that are familiar with the rest of your church materials. Whatever options they give you for customizing that form, make it look as much like the rest of your materials, your bulletins, your newsletter, your website as you can. Again, the fewer the click, the better. Make certain, so I've told you to simplify your form, but do give them an option to make their gift recurring. When somebody selects this and that gift then automatically comes monthly or with whatever frequency they've selected, you are you're just expanding the guaranteed income.
You cannot create a new account to accept Venmo, comma, you must use PayPal, comma.
Okay, I wasn't sure about that. When you require, or when you ask for a matching gift or a recurring gift, you give people the opportunity then to make that gift happen automatically, and it's a beautiful thing. You should probably put anything else, like, do you want more information about church services? Do you want the rector to give you a call? You should put those as check boxes, and then allow people to come back later and fill in more information or follow up with them, however that's going to happen for you. The best thing about submitting an online gift is that the first receipt is automated. It comes right back into their email. You've made a gift of $100 to support this church. We thank you for it. You can usually customize that and maybe say, you've really helped out our community, or if you have some special ministries that you're wanting to focus on, you can put those in there. But the automated first receipt that goes out seconds after the donation has been received is a great way to send that first thank you. You can then follow up with your own process, writing a letter or a note, or having an automatic letter that goes out to accept their pledge. But immediately upon making a gift, they get an automated donation receipt. This is a great tool to keep people in touch. Finally, don't forget the ritual of the offertory. I know that at the beginning of the pandemic, we didn't know what to do with that moment of drama, that beautiful moment in our church service where we've had the peace and we're about to transition to the table, and this moment where we bring our gifts forward happens. And it just lacked the punch when we weren't walking down an aisle with gifts and placing them on the altar, because the gifts were right there on the credence table, or some of us weren't doing Eucharist, and so we weren't having a presentation like that. But I'm urging us to now, in our virtual services, in the near future, in our hybrid services, and going forward in our in-person liturgies, to spend some time thinking about the offertory. It is a really powerful moment in which we invite, gather, bless, and break our gifts and share them with a world in need. And let's remember that there are lots of things that go into the theology of that moment. And it's not awkward, it's really powerful. It's when the congregation gets to bring its gifts to the altar and make something of it. I think often in our liturgy, we stumble through this moment, or we just kind of get through it, or it's just very ritualized. But if we stop and pull back and remember that something really important is happening in this moment between the congregation and God, when we are connected at that altar and presenting all of the gifts, the bread, the wine, the plate, and then we are about to share all of those back with each other. It's a real moment of power and drama, and I think we should make more of it. I love churches that have a special anthem at the offertory, and then that focus on that movement from the back of the church to the front of the church. It's really something to pay attention to. So I suggest that even in our virtual services, there are still gifts coming in, and we should still acknowledge them in a way and bless them, even if they are invisible because they're virtual. Find ways to hold them up and share them with the community and let people know that gifts have been made and been shared with the congregation. I'm going to stop for a minute. I'm going to pull us in. I see that we have at least one question that's been put into the chat, but I'm going to pull us in for some conversation on anything that we've talked about so far, about virtual offering forms, about virtual offering plates, some of the statistics we talked about, and the offertory itself. We'll take a few moments and then we'll move on and we'll start looking at platforms that did really well last year. What are your questions? Hi, Elizabeth.
You know, I don't have a question so much as just great thanks for the slide about offertory, which as a non-Episcopalian and non-churchgoer and staff member at Grace, I've been struggling with. And I had one conversation with a clergy member, Anna Rossi, who sort of said, you know, this is how we talk about it. And wow, you know, it's just not in my wheelhouse. And I just thank you so much for just this like 2 minutes of insight. And once I know what it is, I can write it, and I can write it in the liturgy, you know, as for them to say in the announcements, or not liturgy, but the announcements. And of course they'll say, the clergy will say what they wish. But gosh, thank you so much. This alone was worth the price of admission. And I've already snipped and copied your slide and emailed it to myself and taken copious notes on what you just said. It was just, thank you so much.
Thanks, Elizabeth. I'm glad that was helpful.
Really helpful.
You'll get these slides at the end of the presentation. We'll post them so you can download them again and share them.
Thank you.
The offertory is really important, and it's important in all times. And so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Melanie has typed into the chat a question about recurring giving. Is that something only for virtual giving? Well, you know, when we make a pledge, we also, and people are making cash payments or check payments, we always ask them the frequency, right? Where you're going to make your gift of $2,000 this year and you're going to pay monthly or quarterly or weekly. I don't think there are many churches left that give the weekly envelopes anymore. Oh, you do? Wow.
If people request weekly, we give them, or they say weekly, whatever. What do they say? And we print them out and we send them. Oh yeah.
I always loved getting this box of envelopes, and then I was like, ugh, sometimes I miss one and then I feel weird about it.
No.
I think was the point. But
Yeah.
We use them actually to pay off or whatever, pay down stewardship pledges. That's what it's for.
Yep, that's what they're about.
Yeah.
So, so Melanie, when people, when, so your question, I guess, is about what is a recurring gift? And I would say it really is limited to online because that's where it's automated. Otherwise, when we're talking about our pledges, they're they're recurring to the extent that we, the giver, initiate that transaction each time. And so we can request that people stick to a schedule and maybe commit to one up front. And we can do, some churches are great about sending regular statements and reminders to keep people moving through the year of their giving. And sometimes we fall behind and we lag and it's a few months before a statement goes out. So I would say that when I think about recurring giving, it's really about making your online gift. And when you switch that function to allow people to make a gift recurring online, then it just keeps coming out of their checking account or their credit card, whatever method they're using. And it makes it easy on them, and it makes it really easy on the church because there's that cash flow.
I get that. It's more of a theological question for me
Mhm.
because, like KQED, I just every year it's the same thing, right?
Right.
It doesn't make me stop to think I need to increase it more this year.
Right. Well,
So I've avoided putting it on the pledge card because I want people to pray about it. I want them to think about it. And it would be just too easy to keep flatlining forever,
Yeah,
recurring gifts.
I,
I
oh, Elizabeth, it sounds like
I
you.
agree. I mean, this is the issue. People say to me, I just want to keep going. I just want to keep going. And I've been told, and I appreciate that it's about renewing your commitment every year and stepping up to it every year. And for us in September saying, I pledge this, and giving us the opportunity to have, a larger gift or a smaller gift, depending on the person's circumstances. And it really, you know, and also credit cards change. There's every month we have a large amount of gifts, as you can imagine, but every we do on the 5th or the 20th of every month we do our charges, and 2 or 3 people will come up every time that we have to find and say, it didn't go through. I'm sure it's just because you changed your card or the expiration date or whatever. I mean, there's that technical piece, but also there's the piece of, do you want to give more? Can you give more? Or do you need to give less? Your circumstances dictate that. And I talk to people about that all the time, but then so many people are sort of offended about, they just want to continue. But you can never, as a professional development person coming from outside the church world, you can never assume that you can just keep going and going. They may get mad at you.
Right. I think I hear the question now, and I think it is a theological question, and it is something for us to think about. And the fundraiser in me says, offer it, make it possible for people to make a recurring gift, because then it's there. And every fall or every time you run your annual campaign, you also have the option, or you also send out the information and invite people to renew that pledge. So they may adjust what they're giving, and maybe we adjust our language. It's time to revisit your recurring gift and pray about what you want it to be for 2022, and sort of help people reset that thinking so that it isn't just automated and I'm giving a flat, stagnant gift forever. We need you to renew your pledge. This is also an opportunity to remind them why Episcopal Church budgets look at pledging as one of the ways that they set their budget and create the expectation for how they can raise and spend their money in a year. And so even if you're going to make the same gift, even if you are on a recurring giving plan, please fill out a pledge form this year, because that's what we'll use to set our budget, or to meet in our finance committee, or to assess how we're doing, whatever language you want around that. I would say those are a couple of good things. I saw Linda come off mute for a moment, and I wonder maybe if she had something to toss into this conversation.
I was just going to agree with you that I think that there's the ease of having it automatically taken care of throughout the year. And then you need to refresh people or remind people to refresh their thinking. So we're in the process now of, I'm co-chairing the Stewardship Committee for this year. And we're just thinking of what can we do to build upon last year to enthuse people to think it through? And we're trying to not say, show me the money, but trying to talk more about offering up how, your appreciation for your faith, God, our CEC family, the church family, and trying to put it that way. And we started on that path last year, and it was rather successful, especially considering a pandemic.
Right.
But it's just that ease of being able to have it done directly.
Mm-hmm. Melanie, I really appreciate the thought behind your question. And as I think more about it, I don't know how many online givers you have at Epiphany and how many recurring gifts you might be talking about. It's probably not as many as Elizabeth's dealing with at Grace Cathedral.
I wish.
And so, right, I know, we all wish. So I'm wondering if maybe, like, if you had a dozen people making recurring gifts, right? That's a number you can deal with. That's a number that at the campaign time, you could make a special effort to reach out to and say, I know, Davey, you're on our recurring giving program, and we really appreciate that every 2-week gift that you give us. I wonder if, we're sending you the pledge card this year. I wonder if you would take a look at it and think about if your giving still matches your capacity this year, what you might like to think about that. And just have it be, we know you're on it. It's a small number of folks, a small enough number that a small group of people could conceivably reach out to them.
Right.
Unless you're dealing with a big scale, in which case you'd need some other kind of process to work on that. But I think that it's always an opportunity. Stewardship is so relational, right? And we do automate it in some ways, and we do put a process around it through pledge cards and envelopes and who knows what about which. But then at the end of the day, it's relational, and it's one person asking another person. It's one Christian asking another Christian to participate in community. And I think it just gives an opportunity to have some conversation. I think if you ever get to that point where you have a huge scale, then we can readdress this question. And, the church of the future will have this, right? I mean, at some point, no one's going to be writing a check anymore. And it's all going to be online. And this is just, when we look at church giving in another 10 years and another 15 years and another 20 years, and we see the millennials being the predominant, the largest generation of givers, they're not writing checks.
What's a check? Yeah.
What is a check? So let's get ready for it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Jim, what are you doing in Fremont? Yeah.
We have three or four ways of collecting pledge, I guess is the best way to put it. The one most that we're using PayPal. We're encouraging people who don't want to use PayPal to use their bank to transfer money. Again, it's another recurring expense. You can just say, send the church $400 every month. Thank you very much. But every year you go back and you reaffirm using the pledge as to what your commitment is. And every year, the expectation is maybe your commitment would be more.
Yeah.
And then of course we have people who provide checks and they mail them in. And we take those too.
Right.
I like the notion of the text giving and the targeted giving, if you will, a specific ministry, like we have one for providing lunches for the kids at a local elementary school and the junior high school. The kids who don't have funds to have food, we make sure they have the food. They shouldn't be in a food desert. And so, but it's just, we could set up a program that says, here's something special that you can do as a Tuesday giving.
Yeah, definitely.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, social media can be really good for those special initiatives. And every time a person makes a gift to a special initiative, then you can follow up with, you also make a gift to the church budget or the operating fund or whatever you call it. And we appreciate that. So, it's a little reinforcement. And also when you have people who are giving to your annual fund, your operating fund through their annual gift, and then you see that they're connecting and making gifts to special ministries, it gives you another window into their capacity, and an opportunity at some point for someone on the stewardship team to maybe talk with them about their gift. If you notice somebody's making regularly really large gifts to special ministry, but a modest gift to their annual campaign, maybe you could talk about what is it about the special ministry that gets you excited, that isn't revealed in your church giving. Like, what is it that excites you as much about the church that excites you about the special ministry that we're doing? And have conversations. We don't always think about doing that. In fact, we hate the idea often of thinking of doing that in church, but you can have honest conversations with your members about why they support things and why they don't support others, just to get information about how much of your mission they adopt and know about. Later in the summer, we're going to do a conversation about creating materials that show your impact and your mission, and really helping you develop your case statement, your case for support. And this is so important. When people really know all the things that their gifts do at church, they can be as excited about their church giving as they are about their special ministry giving. But we don't always make the connection easy for them. Right. And we have to do a better job of that.
I checked while we were talking, while you had your slides up. I went on our website to check if we have an easy place to donate. It's one click away, but but you have to know how to get there. And so I'll talk to our webmaster about perhaps getting an easy way on the homepage to. It's just in giving. And so when you get to the giving section, there's a section for pledge, there's a pledge section for pledge form, there's a section for special ministries. So you can do all of that. And how do you want to do it? Do you want to use PayPal?
Great.
And so it's there. It's just not one click away, and it should be just one click away.
Beautiful. Yeah, it should be on your homepage. And I'm glad that you have a spot on your website and you have all the options there. It's really
Yeah.
Good work. Good work.
We try.
All right, let's talk, let's go into some of the platforms that have risen to the top in 2020 and 2021 and are really doing good work. And then we will, I'll pull us back in for any last questions. We have a few slides left and then we'll have some general discussion again. So again, let's review our best practices for virtual giving campaigns. The first thing is that you find the technology or technologies that work for you. Some of you are using PayPal, some of you might use Tithely, some of you might use any number of other ways to make gifts online. Find the ones that work for you, that have easy reporting, that your treasurer can understand. Was having a conversation with someone the other day who said, you know, our treasurer is 90 years old and she's been doing this work for a long time. And I have to translate all of our online giving and give it to her in a spreadsheet, which she likes. And then she figures it out and puts it into the budget. And okay, that's a system that's working for them, but it may not work for the treasurer. So we have to find technologies and treasurers that understand how to use these tools. So there are a lot of options out there for technologies. Look at them and select the one that works best for you. Develop your case and your collateral that you're going to send electronically. Again, come back in August, where we're going to be talking about this in more detail. TENS, the Episcopal Network for Stewardship, is available to you as members of DIOCAL because TENS, DIOCAL is a member of TENS. And so all of the resources on the TENS website, tens.org, are free to you. And they have great resources for virtual campaigns, especially for our pledge campaigns. There is a meditation each week for the September through November Sundays that helps make a stewardship case out of the readings and gives us something to think about in a sermon or in a rector's forum or an adult ed program. Gives us an opportunity to look at our readings theologically and create a stewardship message out of them. If you're doing small groups about your virtual campaigns, sometimes in our annual giving programs, we do dinner churches or small groups or house church or other things like that, to have small groups that meet and talk about what they love about the church and how they're going to make their gifts. If you disseminate your information that way, select great leaders to facilitate those small groups if they're virtual or if they're in person. At Holy Innocents, my church, we do dinners. Like 8 or 9 people agree to host dinners in their house, and that's how we do our stewardship campaign, and people talk and laugh and fill out their pledge forms together. It's a communal activity, but you do it the way you do it in your congregation. Make certain that everybody gets acknowledged. Everybody gets an opportunity to give, and give them multiple ways. The announcements, you're running your campaign in church, they're getting it through the website, through your social media, through a letter, through an email. Give them all the options to participate and learn that you are in fact raising money this year, and it's going for a whole bunch of great things which you want to tell them about. Every congregation should have the ability to collect donations and pledges online and via mobile platforms. It's one of the reasons is because fewer and fewer people are carrying cash. If I came to your church as a visitor and a collection plate were put in front of me, you'd get very little from me because I haven't been to an ATM in a while. I use my debit card or even my phone to pay for almost everything these days. And so I would sort of be useless for giving to your church. I think the case is more and more with visitors to church that they're not carrying cash. They haven't stopped at the ATM on the way. They don't have a pocket full of money to give you, but their credit cards, their debit cards, their virtual accounts are full and able to make gifts. So we need to offer virtual offering plates. I think even in healthy times, passing a plate suggests that many people are touching a common object. And so I think we're going to be more aware as we emerge from this about the things that we touch and how touch communicates virus or other things, right? So I think the more we can make this virtual and meaningful, the better. When we make gifts online, the receipts are automatic. The thank yous come minutes, seconds from having made the gift. And that's one way that you have an immediate interaction with someone and provide them the information if they're tracking this at home in their software, in their check balancing software, whatever they're using, or if they are collecting and they still itemize on their taxes, it gives them the receipt that they need to be able to do that. Most donation software out there gives you at least the basic information to reach out and have further relationships with the people who make gifts online. At the bare minimum, you get their mailing address and their email address and perhaps a phone number, and it's tied to a real name because real money has been transferred. This is really helpful. A lot of times we wonder about how virtual gifts are made and will we be able to track them? And in fact, we can. The gifts are immediate, right? They get sent right into your bank account. And so it's fast, it's easy. Your church bank account is replenished. I know that so many of our congregations work on a cash flow. You know, cash flow is very important, especially in these summer months when giving typically goes down because people are away more than they might be the rest of the year. So when we're making gifts online, and this is particularly the case when we're making recurring gifts, no summer slump. Those gifts keep coming in no matter where people are and no matter what they're doing. There is no reason to limit the number of platforms and ways that you can there's no reason to limit the number of platforms or methods that you should offer for ways that people can make gifts online. Pick as many as your treasurer or your church administrator can handle. Don't overload them, but don't limit them either. This is because many of our donors are comfortable with a particular kind of way that they make a gift. PayPal might be comfortable for some people, but not for others. Some people might like Tithely or Network for Good, and they're used to it. This isn't to say go out there and adopt every platform, because I think you can't do that. But if there are some easy ways that you can have a couple, it's better than, it's better because you'll increase the number of opportunities people have to make gifts to you. It's donor-centric, and this is the thing that we haven't done much of in church giving for a long time. If you think of just about the last couple of years where we've made online giving as strong as we have, this is a huge sea change in donor-centric thinking from where the church was forever, which was we accept cash and checks and you can mail them here. Thank you. The more opportunity we give and the more ways that we give, the more choice we're giving donors. And this is really helpful to them. Don't leave money on the table. Find the ways that your members like and use them to make their gifts. So let's talk about a few platforms that emerged as leaders in 2020. Tithely is a service that a lot of our DioCal congregations are using. It allows for a really wide variety of different kinds of giving. It has a built-in text to give function. It allows for one-time and recurring donations. You can get a QR code. And so if you print that QR code in your bulletin or you put it in your pew rack, people can make a gift with their phone and send it right to you at the offertory in your church. And so Tithely is one of the ways that that people are, congregations are using. It's a great app. It has a website, but it's also really for your phone, has really great functionality. The backend reporting is really good. So you get a clear list of people who made gifts, how to contact them, when the transaction happened. You obviously don't get the credit card information and you don't want it, but you get all of the transaction information, and that's really important. DioCal congregations get a reduced rate because TENS has negotiated a reduced rate for all congregations that want to adopt Tithely. And so that means that your setup costs are free. Your transaction is only 2.75% each time, and then another gift of 30 cents per transaction. This is reduced from a lot of other platforms out there. Tithely is a good one, and you get a little better rate because you're a DioCal congregation. You can also ask the donors to pay the transaction cost. This is to say, if I'm making a gift of $100 and the transaction cost is 3%, I could pay $103 and then the church would get my whole 100 instead of taking $3 off of my gift and sending it to the donation platform. So a lot of platforms, a lot of vendors allow the donor to absorb the cost of that transaction so that the church gets the full amount. Melanie has asked, and I'm happy to share it verbally and also in the chat, the password to get TENS resources. You can get the Tithely without a password, but if you want the weekly meditations and the annual pledge campaign that TENS provides, the password, the secret password, is James 1:17, James 1:17. And I'll put that in the materials that I send out also. You can also find it printed on the DioCal website. It's the worst kept secret. So if you go to diocal.org/support/stewardship, we are following our own model for having too many clicks to get to our donation page, but that's a whole nother conversation. But you can access the TENS password on our stewardship page at the diocesan website. And it's right there for you, James 1:17. James 1:17. Every generous act and every perfect gift comes from God above. In case you were wondering what the scripture was. PayPal, obviously, a leader in institutional giving and the easiest one to implement with the biggest brand recognition out there. at minimum, your congregation should offer PayPal because everyone's using it. People are comfortable with it. It's also the least expensive transaction cost on the market. So it's free to set up. The transactions can be as low as 1.6% up to 2.2%, depending on your volume. So you just don't get better than that. So adopt PayPal, put it on your website. It, a minimum gives you that opportunity. Now, it does have recurring giving, so you can make a gift recurring. It doesn't have some of the bells and whistles that an app like Tithely has that can allow you to do sort of a text to give or create sort of a community feel. Your PayPal looks kind of like you're going to PayPal and it's branded like PayPal. But PayPal has wide brand recognition and good market habits. So it's an easy one for you to implement. And as I said, it's your cheapest transaction cost. Make your treasurer and your vestry happy. Another platform that emerged in 2020 that's really good is called Ministry Link. This one has a monthly fee, so it's $19 for the church to pay every month. You get a reasonable transaction rate. What it has is a lot of donor management options, and you can add on modules like special events and auctions, and it has a pretty good newsletter function and all that. So it can kind of be your soup to nuts communication and donation tool. Ministry Link is a good one out there. Clover Give is another platform that you might be using, or some of our churches are using. This one has a really good, so you can, if you're doing a virtual event or a non-virtual event, if you're doing an auction, a silent auction, a bake sale, your Christmas bazaar, and you want to do some sort of event-based fundraising and ask for people to make gifts online or over their phone, Clover Give has a tool that's kind of ready to go for that. You do pay a monthly fee. The transaction cost you see is kind of low, so it's not a bad transaction cost. And you have some great functionality with it. For $19 a month, and including the rental of the hardware, it'll give you a little kiosk, kind of like a credit card reader that you can attach to an iPad or to some other thing that you can have in your church for people to make online gifts in that way, or not online gifts, sorry, to make a credit card gift in your church. I know that we don't want to set up kiosks at the back of our church that beep and flash like a slot machine. We don't really want to do that, but there are some tasteful options out there for ways that you can have something that sits on a table at the back of the church for people to make a gift, to swipe or insert a credit card, and things like that. So they offer some tools and you might be interested in taking a look at them. Vanco is another really great organization, and they're doing a pretty robust online transaction platform. It can be expensive. The monthly fee can go up. It's more expensive the less volume you have, as you might expect. And they offer all of the bells and whistles. You can get really deep into it. Events, kiosks, text giving. They can support your website. They can really do communications tools for you. It's a pretty robust service, and they really prove to be good partners with churches through the pandemic. Finally, I want to talk about Facebook. Facebook has its own giving platform, and I know a lot of us are using Facebook Live to do virtual church services and to stream our church. And so you can integrate that button on Facebook into your virtual service or your virtual streaming service for worship or for other events that you're doing. They've made it free, and they extended that through the pandemic. It's likely that they will continue offering this for free for nonprofits and churches because it's been really widely adopted, and they're finding other ways to get money out of, Facebook always has a way. But they're providing the service for free, and it's a really good one. So if you are already using Facebook Live to stream your service, this is an easy way to integrate giving into your service. Thank you. That concludes sort of the roundup of good partners in giving that we had in 2020 and platforms. And I want to close this out again and move back into our conversation so we can answer and ask any questions. I'm going to start with Elizabeth, who says that you all use dip jar at Grace Cathedral, and that's one I'm not familiar with. So
Oh, well,
tell me about dip jar and what you do.
go look it up. When I was at the Jewish Community Center, we looked into dip jar, blah, blah, blah. But when I got to Grace, we had already, they had already installed dip jar at 2 spots at the cathedral. And I think it's mostly for tourists to be able, so you set the dip jar for $10 or $20 or $30, and people just put in their, their credit card, and it's just that amount that's preset. So you may want to look into that. It's limited again because of the preset amount.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And interesting that you can't say, well, I want to give more or I want to give less or whatever.
Yeah, maybe look into it a little bit more. Maybe it's more flexible, but went away during the pandemic, of course. Then we brought it back, and I said, let's get the dip jar back there. And I think we set it to $10 for as like an offertory, less for tourists because we're not letting in tourists right now. We're just doing services. So using it like an offertory. And
so you have members who are making regular gifts that way, and how many are like?
It hasn't been long because Grace has only been open. We had simple communion outside in the plaza in May. We've only been open 3 or 4 weeks now inside. And I've been there not quite every time. But we have literally physical boxes at the back with a little cute poster that is sort of a stewardship, has the stewardship branding, but is like an offertory. Just like a plastic box, like lucite box. And then we have the dip jars, and then we have these sort of somewhat secure metal chutes, if you will, at the back of the cathedral for just cash. It seems now to me so strange just to take unattributed cash, right? Which has always been the way. But the great blessing of COVID was text to give. So at least we get an email. Contact tracing, where we ask for registrations for services. So I am literally able to export people who come to services or who have given to the plate and see whether or not they've given to stewardship. And I just sent an email to 500 people to end our campaign. Will you be one of the 10 more donors to our goal, whatever it is for you all there at your congregations? Will you be one of the X amount of people to pledge? And in 3 days, I made those 10 people and more. And because of this, having people being required to register and then entering them into our database and then being able to know that they had not yet pledged. It was really pretty powerful.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, I'd love to give advice to anybody. I mean, I know that our program is large, but it has some transferable advice.
Great. Thank you.
So I have another question if nobody else is, I don't want to,
Let's hear it.
we're putting together a tablet or a couple of tablets so people can do a phone thing or whatever. Have you seen anything nice and liturgically elegant in which to put that? Any samples that you've seen from around the country or somewhere that looks just gorgeous so that it wouldn't just look like a flashy neon kiosk?
Right. You know, it says big winner when you make a good gift online. No, I have seen them. And so Ministry Link and Clover Give, if you check out their websites, they have some things. If you Google, there are lots of other options, and some of them are reasonable and some of them are ridiculously expensive. Some of them are like, you know, podium height, and some of them are just rest on a table. I've seen a lot of different options, and I think what always works best is something that's kind of homegrown. I saw a picture, somebody sent me a picture of what they were doing in their church in Texas, and it was like a basket, like you would, you know, put bread in or whatever, and it had like some fabric and it had the tablet sitting in it. And it's what they use for their passing the plate. And they were just like, we're just going to put it in that. And it was something that was then familiar to people, right? But it was contextual to their congregation. And that to them made sense. And I like that idea, because then it's something that looks familiar. It looks like what people expect it to look like. The other thing that I've seen done really successfully, Melanie, in terms of having people make gifts on their phone, is to include a QR code in the bulletin, or, you know, a rack of them in the pews, in the pew rack, to have a little card that they can pull out. Their phone camera recognizes it, and a gift is made. I've seen congregations do things like, you know, we know you're pulling your phone out during service anyway, why not put it to good use? You know, so you can do things with it, and it's really easy. A QR code is easy to generate. Even if you're not using an app, you can run your church donation page. So Jim's stewardship page at St. James Fremont can be the thing that your QR code, and you just go to, you know, you Google, how do I create a QR code? And it gives you, put the URL in it, it spits out a QR code, you import that into your bulletin, and it goes to whatever page you want it to go to. So those are really simple ways to have people make a gift using their phone in a setting that is already something that they're familiar with. I think, you know, I think the more we try to make what are called kiosks, they become a piece of furniture. And I will leave it to greater minds than mine to philosophize on what happens to furniture in Episcopal churches. Then it becomes a thing.
Thank
I like the idea of the QR code in the bulletin or hanging on the back of the pew, connected to the giving page on the website, so that it not only gives me opportunity to take a donation, but it also gives me the opportunity to ask, have you pledged? Would you like to make this a recurring? There's all kinds of things you can do once you've got that connection.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just, here's $10.
Exactly. It gives you more engagement with the
Yes,
donor
yes.
after they've.
Unfortunately, it's also during the sermon, so they're
It's okay.
I'm not sure Lori think that, but
We who preach occasionally appreciate that people might be distracted from time to time during our sermons. It happens. So I hear what you're saying, and it's really, I think it's a good way to keep up that donor engagement, which is really important, giving them more information after they've made their gifts. At Holy Innocents, we do the QR code and a card on the back of the pew. I just saw an example from St. Paul's in Oakland, where they have the QR code in their bulletin right there at the offertory. So it's like the offertory anthem will be, and here's a QR code. Make your gift. So I see lots of this around the church and the diocese. It's a great way to do it. Certainly helpful.
it just dawned on me, we, for our online services, we actually have the PDF for the actual service for people who are watching online, so they can participate. It's got the hymns, all that stuff, so you can sing along like everybody else. But that's a good idea, because you could actually, for the people at home, they get the QR code, they can donate while they're at home. And the thing there is for the rector to note that during that time when you're requesting and during the offertory.
This is why I made a little point about the offertory in itself, and taking some time to really honor what's happening there. That it is the moment where the people present their gifts.
Mm-hmm.
The bread and the wine, which will be transformed at the altar, but also the money that we give, which also at the altar becomes transformed and a part of the work of the church. And so that moment of transformation, it can have a few extra seconds to allow it the gravity of that space. It's a time for the clergy to be able to say something about how we make gifts and where those gifts are going, to give a little, it's not a hard pitch, it's an awareness of how we make our gifts and where those gifts are going. The offertory is a beautiful time for that. And we can take the time to do that. We have it, it's built into our liturgy.
Thank you so much for saying that, because that's something that we've struggled with a little bit. And now that we come out of the pandemic and we're sort of in the hybrid, allowing that, it was rushed through, like, okay, give to Grace, text to this, to GRACE, and then they would move on. And you need to just allow time so that they have permission, as we were talking about before, to look at their phones, right? Which is not, previously permitted, but right? And let's give them time to do that at home or now in the pews. And yeah, thank you. I've just learned so much from you about the offertory. Thank you, Davey.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's part of the work, and it's part of the new church. Everyone's talking about what will we become and how will we change, and this is, I think, one of the ways that we're accepting it now. We don't want people to stay on their phone after they've made their gift, but let's honor the moment for what it is.
I have always told people when they have their phones out, and I notice that, and they think I'm coming over to say, put that phone away. They don't anymore because of who I am, but I say, that's great. You're texting people to say, come to church. Great things are happening here.
Yes.
And they go from being really embarrassed and everything else to, oh, yeah, that's what I'm doing. Sure.
Exactly what I was saying.
Exactly.
I love it. We have to have a sense of humor about this.
My goodness, yes.
Well, we are at the end of our time, and I really appreciate your questions. We were a small group, but I really appreciate the questions that you had, because that made it more contextual and more interesting. So thank you for being a part of this fourth Thursday series. Our next one in July, so be ready for it. I understand there was some mess up on the website about which one we were signing up for this time.
Right.
I apologize for that. It will be fixed, and we'll get you the information you need. Also, by Monday, this presentation recording and the slides that go with it will be on the website as well. So you can share it with folks who weren't here, your stewardship committee or your vestry or anyone else. You can replay it for the greatest hits. You can't fall asleep.
Relive the magic.
Relive the magic.
Are you sending us the slides?
Yep, I will also email you once the slides are posted. I'll email you the links so that you can access.
Excellent, excellent. There's some really important stuff that the vestry really needs to see.
Excellent. Happy to share it. I appreciate the work of ministry that you do for the church. It's not easy to engage in fundraising in church, and I want to acknowledge that you're doing beautiful and hard and godly work. So thank you for it. I appreciate all that you do.
Thank you.
See you
Thank
next
you,
time.
Katie. This was great.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Great to be with you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.